brother?
What's going on, everybody? I'm Josh Cherney. I go by Cherney, EDM artist. Make dubstep, trap, bangers.
Bangers. I think that's the key word right there. Talk to me. Where are you from?
I'm from Orange County, a town called Mission Viejo. So I'm about an hour south of Los Angeles. A nice little town by the beach.
All right, sweet, dude. All right, well, thank you for coming through. Obviously, you kind of well known in Chico. Had to have you come through. In my opinion, you're well known. I mean, you're definitely a good guy. Definitely a guy who makes some pretty good beats. Let's kind of just jump right into it. Talk to me about your influences. How did you start making this type of music?
So it started off when I was 14 years old in middle school. I had a jazz teacher who introduced me to GarageBand, which is like the inferior version of Logic Pro. And we had a competition in the class to see who could write the best song, and I really wanted to win. So I was like figuring out all this stuff, all these instruments, and I was like, this is awesome. I can put anything in my head into a project. So I put together like a little track, like wasn't even quantized or anything. just this little like messy like drum loop and like horns and all that, and they had this whole audience of people at our concert vote for who they thought had the best track, and they picked mine, and it made me really happy. And I was like, hey, the fact that I can take anything and that's in my head and like bring it to life, it was a pretty crazy feeling. So I was like, hey, I want to pursue this. And like my parents recently just got like a MacBook, and so I just was on their MacBook all the time, right, playing in GarageBand. And so that's how I got started, and I really decided that I wanted to do music as a career when I was a freshman in high school, or freshman in college, actually, not high school.
Wow. Okay. So you being in a jazz band, what instrument did you play?
I played alto saxophone. Still know how to play it. Played it all the way through high school and till now. Actually, I'm in for all the Chico people. I'm in Rocky Winslow's jazz band, or was last semester. So
That's sweet.
So that was a lot of fun. It still is. I'm a pretty bad sax player, but it's still fun to play. I enjoy it.
It's actually really cool. You got to have a class with Rocky. The only class I've had with him was jazz history. I think we talked about this, but yeah, I mean, I can only imagine the way he acts in a performance class. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he does a really well, like teaching for a band. That's for sure. He's very passionate about his instrument. So when he has a band in front of him, you can definitely see the passion. So
that's really cool. Damn, dude. Yeah. And did you have any concerts and whatnot too?
So a while back, I won a remix contest that was pretty big. There's an artist named Jaws who's a pretty well-known like EDM artist now. He's growing a lot of popularity. He had a contest for one of his biggest songs, which is called Feel the Volume. And I had a show October 3rd last year that was for a group called the Jane Does, and I wanted to make a song to play because I was opening for them, and I just wanted to make like an awesome track to drop that night. And I ended up turning it into this remix contest for this Jaws song, which won me a trip to fly out to Louisiana and play a show in New Orleans on a main stage at a festival. And it was probably the best weekend of my life, just being out there in front of like hundreds of people, all going crazy to my music, and then actually getting to meet Jaws and him telling me what I need to do to become successful and what I need to do to keep the drive going. So as far as like shows in the future, there's a United Underground Entertainment show coming up April 30th at Lost on Main. It opens up at 9. I encourage everybody who wants to go to an EDM show to come as early as possible, but I'll be on around 1 a.m. or 1:15 would be the last set. Straight up dirty, nasty, bassy music. So if any of you are into that, make sure you come check it out.
Well, I'll definitely be there for sure. I'll be there for the whole show. But yeah, definitely I'm into that whole dubstep kind of nasty trap stuff. When did you start getting into that? When did you kind of feel like you started to get into like dubstep scene or that whole trap scene, or kind of walk us through that?
That's kind of funny because everybody starts off in different places, or you don't expect where you're going to end up. Like when I first started writing music, it was very mainstream melodic EDM type music where, Four on the Floor, sidechain synths, like all that mainstream
Right.
stuff. And I was like, I really need to make a sound for myself. And the cool thing about dubstep is it's all basically sound design. So you can really identify somebody on their sound based on dubstep, because like you can tell the person's heart goes into it. So I'm like, this is like one of the genres where I can be most creative and most stand out, because people can recognize, the Tiesto song or the Calvin Harris song, and or some people can't. They'll be like, oh, that sounds like this person, but it really isn't. But with dubstep, you hear that sound or you hear a specific like pattern, then you know exactly who it is. So I was like, okay, if I want to make a name for myself, I'm going to write this kind of music and I'm just going to go with it. And it turned out to be like one of my favorite types of music, just because I have an appreciation for these people now that I'm sitting in their shoes, trying to become like them, or come like myself, but just at their level. But yeah, it's an amazing genre of music, and it's sad that it's not like as popular as others, but that's because it's hard to it's hard for people to digest like trash cans or like or flushing toilets that sound completely distorted. But but yeah, that's pretty much it for that.
I remember the first couple times I showed my mom some like old like 16-bit or like old Caspa tracks, and my mom was like really concerned, and she's like, I really want to see if you have like ADHD or something like that. Like like I legitimately had a couple conversations with parents like, yeah, kids who listen to this dubstep usually have like attention disorders and stuff like that. And I was like, what do you mean? I enjoy it just because there's so much energy that's going on to that style, and like you said, there's a lot of passion going into it, and it's really cool when you can see the creativity come out in a dubstep track. I think what really pulled me into that genre was I think it was like it's either a Casper or a Rusko track, I can't remember. Actually no, it might have been a Scream track, I don't know, but they sampled a couple seconds from a movie called Rock and Rolla, and then there was another track there they sampled a couple tracks from Snatch. These are like cool old like UK films and whatnot, and it was just really interesting how these guys, they made the music kind of similar to where they're from, South London and whatnot, but then also took films that featured South London people, or at least, had characters within South London, and were able to put those in their music as well. It's really interesting when, artists or producers can not only like get influenced by their area, but at the same time add those elements into their tracks as well.
Oh yeah, totally. And back to like what you were saying about like, your mom thinking you have ADD instead of ADHD. It was hard for my parents to digest at first. They were like, what is this? What are you doing? Like, my parents, they've supported me my entire life. I really love them. They recognize that I don't like to say that I'm talented, because I try to stay, as humble as possible, but they recognize that there was something there and they wanted to support it. And they're like, we don't really quite understand this music, and we don't really understand like, the fans and all that, but we support you. But now my parents, like, I'm not even home and they turn on dubstep and they're jamming out. They're having a great time. And that's really cool that like, if you can get somebody in your life to like listen to this music, you can probably change it for them. And like, I would never expect like my parents to be listening to dubstep, or they'd be like my dad my dad's listened to so many dubstep tracks I've made, and he's like, now he can give me feedback. He's like, oh yeah, the low end doesn't sound as punchy as this track. And then I'm like, Dad, you're starting to sound like a composer yourself. And so it's kind of cool that, it is kind of like a generation thing. That's the word I'm looking for, but it's very powerful indeed.
So you were talking about your experience in winning contests and getting flown out to New Orleans, you said, right?
Yeah.
Dude, talk about that. Like, what, you're kind of talking about how you made the track and whatnot, and let's kind of walk us through that. Like, how did you find out about the contest, those things? Did you, once you found out you won, kind of talk about that?
Yeah, it's crazy because there's times where like I see a contest and I just like, I want to win this so bad. And I put so much work into it and I end up losing. And then there's the contest where I already have a song made and I'm like, oh, I'll just throw on these stems and see what happens. And those are the ones I end up winning. But so if that's what happened with this one, I was hanging out at home and I got a phone call from the manager of the festival who was like, hey, really enjoyed your job mix, and we were wondering if you'd be able to fly out this next week. It was like a week away from the festival. So they were like, can you fly out like this week? Can we get you out here? And I was like, yeah, I'll be there. I'm not going to class. Like, I'm going to be there. So I freaked out. It was insane. I called my parents and I was like, guys, this is what happened. Like, this is huge. Will one of you come with me? Like, and so my dad came with me. We flew out to New Orleans, got him a backstage pass. We called him my photographer because he was carrying around his camera gear. So he got a backstage pass. We got to go backstage and check out everything. It was a hot, beautiful day out and tons of ravers. Just it was my very first festival too. Like, I never been to an EDM festival before. So being able to say I played at a main stage festival,
It's kind of a big deal.
yeah, my very first festival was playing main stage, so that was really cool. And I got to meet a lot of cool people, and it was a great trip. And the next day was on October 30th. The next day was Halloween, so partied it up after playing my show, and then went on home. But it was an amazing experience, and that experience pretty much made it so that, like, no matter how hard it gets to become successful in this career, I'm just gonna keep going, because once you get a taste, it's like you just want more. You just want more. You're not gonna give it up. And people who are really passionate about what they do, I think they'll become successful. So,
I mean, you can, yeah, for anyone who's been successful in the past, that's usually what they always talk about. They talk about their work ethic and they talk about their passion. And they just talk about, their perseverance. And I don't know, you've kind of talked about that today, which is really cool to hear, really cool to see as well. So you're talking about GarageBand. Where are you at now? Are you messing with Ableton? You kind of want to jump into that?
Yeah. So as not a lot of people know, but GarageBand's like an intro level thing for music composers. And what comes next for Apple users, if you're really familiar with GarageBand, would be Logic or Logic Pro X, which is the latest version. So I currently work in Logic Pro X, which is basically like a fancier GarageBand, a lot more tools, and have a lot of plugins. I mean, pretty much as a producer, it doesn't really matter what DAW you use. It's just how you use the tools inside the DAW. But I've played around with Ableton for a bit for like live performance things with some friends in the past, just for fun. But I've never really liked the workflow of it. It's I don't want to say it's like it seems too simple, because that's not the case. It just seems to like drag and droppy, kind of like FL Studio. And I like how laid out Logic is. It's nice and it's easier for me to work. I work faster. There's not as many windows I have to open up. It's just open up my plugin, type in the MIDI, I'm done. And but yeah, Logic Pro is great software. I don't see myself changing to anything else ever. So.
Well, yeah, I can kind of imagine that you being a recording arts student here in Chico, and that's what you guys live in. I mean, you guys use the Logic, so you kind of, I feel like you already know all that whole language. So it's like, why would you learn another language? You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, if I was to not be an EDM producer or not want to follow this passion, I would be learning Pro Tools right now, because that's like an industry standard for music recording arts students. But I have my eyes on the prize, so I'm sticking with Logic here.
That's right. And when it comes to your tracks, how are you inspired with your tracks? Like, do you hear something, you hear a couple like little beats and whatnot, be like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put this together. You throw it down the track, you come back to it a couple days later. Like, how does your workflow go when creating the track?
So the workflow can vary. There's two types of workflow for me. There's one where I'll be sitting down and then I just start headbanging. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm hearing something in my head. Then I go sit down at the computer and I pump it out in 5 hours and I'm done. And then the track's there, it's finished, it's clean, it's polished up. And then there's times where I force myself to be creative, and those are the times where I sit down, lay down a drum beat, and just work on sounds for a few hours and go back to it a few days later and work on it. And I've came up with great tracks either way, but like something that a lot of people say about me, like, how do you work so fast? Like, how do you make music tracks like so quickly? And it's kind of like painting a picture. If you look out at the ocean and you're painting the ocean, you see it all there. You just need to paint it. So for some cases, I just hear it and I just need to transfer it onto the paper, or for this instance, Logic, and I know how it's all going to sound in my head. And if I try singing it to you, I'd probably sound pretty messed up. But
the way you describe it, it's almost like a, like an analog to digital converter, and then back from digital to analog. You're like, it's in here. I just gotta like convert it out to here. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's exactly it. Sometimes it sounds better than it did in your head, but sometimes it sounds worse. But I'm kind of weird because I really like working alone when it comes to music, and obviously as a composer, like working with other artists and working with other people is essential, because they get you places and you get them places, and you develop all these connections and you learn new things. I've collaborated with several artists, but the way I would do it is I was like, okay, I'm going to send you some stuff and you work on it, and then you send it back to me, and then I'll work on it on my own time or in my own space, because I have a hard time paying attention on a project if somebody's like, oh yeah, you need to EQ that hi-hat. I'm like, no, I'm working on this right now. Like, just don't talk to me. So everybody's like, why don't we just meet up and work on the track? I'm like, I can't. It just ruins my workflow. So I'm weird. Like, I feel like if I don't finish my tracks quickly, then I'm going to lose all my ideas and it's going to stress me out. So it's like, but collaborating with people is great. Like, I've done tracks with Yandi, who's a great rapper. I've done tracks with World Coast. Working on a few tracks with an artist named Subfer and an artist named K10. A lot of these talented Chico producers and singers and songwriters. So hopefully as things get better, I start moving up the ladder and coming across all my inspirations and working with them.
And you kind of talk about the Chico artist. It's kind of random, but also amazing at the same time, how many different people from all over California and all over the U.S. come to Chico, random as hell, and are actually pretty good artists. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's like a little hub, and it's a small enough place to kind of get your bearings and really understand what you want to do and how to actually present yourself and actually how to make your music. But I feel like after people leave Chico, they really do leave with a good, education and a really good experience. But especially for all the artists here, because there's so many good artists to collaborate with. You named 5 different artists that are, in my opinion, pretty well known, or at least people are talking about here in Chico, and that's kind of dope.
Oh yeah.
How did you meet some of the artists you've collaborated with in the past? Just kind of online, or just how did that go down?
That's funny. Funny you mentioned that. It's all over the map. There's some are fellow students, some are by word of mouth. Like, fun fact, Yandi, who's rapped on one of my tracks, and we have a couple others in progress. We never met at all for our collaboration. I didn't even meet him in person. I just messaged him online. I'm like, hey, I heard you're a good rapper. I checked out your SoundCloud. Like, you want to rap on this? And he sent me vocals a couple weeks later, and we never met in person. And we had a collaboration right there, and that was crazy. Other people, I've met up with them and did the typical collaborating, where you sit down and work with them for a bit, even though it drives me crazy. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of these people, it's through online. Online's the place to be. Like, my most successful track, which is called Racks, never met the guy in person. It was all online. We collaborate all online, sending stems back and forth. He is way more well-known than I was, but he really liked a track I was working on. So he kind of boosted my career in a sense. And that's why I like collaborating online. Not with other people in person, because you can still get the job done like over the computer. But yeah, I mean, most of these people are like over online, which is pretty crazy.
Are there any remix contests or any tracks you're working on right now?
Yeah.
Too many?
Too many. I just finished a couple remixes recently. One for a Nightmare track called Holding On To Me.
That was really cool, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of out of my comfort zone as far as style goes, so it was kind of fun to experiment a little bit there. And got on another track called Bring Back the Summer by Rain Man, which is the 1/3 of Cruella before they broke up, if anybody knows who Cruella is. And
it's kind of the brainchild.
Yeah, exactly. He is the brainchild of them. He's a very talented guy. And so I took his track and did my own spin on it, and it's been doing really well. And as far as other tracks go, I have a track coming out on Bass Weight Records in about a month or so. Just had a track released on a collective called MMXV Artist Collective, which is kind of like a bunch of trap producers who made a group.
Was that the Diplomacy one?
Diplomacy, yeah. So I've had a lot of tracks come out recently, and then I have about like 10 that are brewing right now in the kitchen, just trying to finish them up and get them signed and get them out there and get the traffic flowing. Trying to reach 10,000 followers before I graduate, and I'm at around 9,100 right now, so I'm almost there.
There you go.
So I got to keep pumping out these tracks, get for free, because I mean, if you want to make a name for yourself, you got to like sacrifice a little bit of your time and your work to get those fans. So
I mean, that's kind of how the industry is nowadays. I mean, everyone can make the argument of how it should change or it's nothing's wrong with it, but at least you're playing the game. You know, I mean, you got to play the game sometimes, and it seems like it's working out for you so far.
So far, so good, man. So far, so good.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of time for you to throw down a little mix if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's good. All right, let's really see what Cherney's cooking up for us.
Cherney. Buck it up, throwing up racks. Buck it up, throwing up racks. Gonna wait for the drop till the niggas power stop. Gonna wait for the drop till the niggas power stop. Half a breeze on me. Yeah, I'm the shit. I should have a breeze on me. Please. This beat, let me hit you with a hook, yeah. Watch it.
Damn. Can we get a round of applause real quick? Thank you very much, man. That was phenomenal. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good, man.
Thank you for that. Really, really do appreciate that.
Cool.
So the first track you started off with, that was Diplomacy, right?
The first track was actually a track called Back to You by Boombox Cartel, but I faded into Diplomacy for the drop instead of their songs.
Oh, okay. That's why. Okay. I was a little confused. I was like, wait. And that's why I kind of like popped over there real quick. But yeah, man. Dude, thank you so much. That was phenomenal.
Cool. Yeah, it's fun playing around with this stuff. I do more producing than I do DJing, so any opportunity I get to play around with the controller a little bit, it's fun. So
cool. All right, man. Well, we're almost out of time here. Just wanted to say thank you again for coming on through. Cherney, do you have any last words?
I do have some last words. I want to say thank you everybody who's listening. If you like this kind of music, please check out my social media at Cherney, spelled Cherney. You can find me on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Joshua Cherney, and Facebook at the same address, Joshua Cherney. If you're into EDM or hip hop or whatever it is, support your local artists, go out to their events. There's a show for United Underground Entertainment coming up April 30th, Lost on Main, 21 plus. If you're old enough, make sure you come through. And if you also like this kind of music, Instant Party's coming to Chico on April 21st. He's going to be dropping all kinds of dirty trap music. You can get tickets for $15 to $20 from different blowout promotion artists. Thank you, KCSC, for having me, and thanks everybody for listening.